Hi, Erica.
Hello, everyone. Hello. Yeah. Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us for this Microsoft Reactor workshop this evening. My name is Erica, and I am the program manager at Microsoft Reactor Stockholm. Today, we continue with the second episode of the 12-episode event series, Around the World of Power BI in 80 Days, a journey through the data platform. This series will provide a 360-degree overview of how to use Power BI to build impactful reports. Through hands-on workshops, you'll discover how to transform and visualize your data and go from zero to hero, just in 12 weeks. The first 4 episodes in this series are designed for beginners to get started with Power BI. The content will become more advanced as the course progresses through the Power BI journey. But today, to receive event resources that our host has prepared for you, to be able to get the maximum out of this session, please check in via the link above and use the event ID 14379. But before we begin, just a very quick word about Microsoft's Code of Conduct. We all come from different backgrounds, so let's just be aware of each other, be friendly and patient. After all, we are all here to learn. Thank you. Now, I say let's move on to the reason why we are all here today. In today's sessions, we are joined by Mark Wilcock. Mark Wilcock is an independent trainer on data analysis and visualization, Power BI, data modeling, SQL, R, Python, and Excel. He has taught thousands of people in many different organizations over the last few years. In the second session of this 12-part series, we will focus on shaping data and visualization. We will explore a case study where we use Power BI's query editor to build the English Premier League table in Power BI. We import the match records of this season's games, then reshape, append, sort, split, calculate, and summarize the data to generate the results we need. We build our basic league table visualization, then improve it with conditional formatting and custom tooltips. This session today will run for approximately 45 minutes with time for questions at the end. But now, let's welcome you, Mark. Hi, Mark, and thank you so much for joining us today and hosting this session with us. I think it is time. Yes, I think it is time for me to hand over the word to you now. I will switch off my camera, but I will be here in the background if I'm needed. Okay?
Great, lovely.
Thank you.
Thank you for your marvelous introduction, and welcome everybody. I hope you enjoy this. This is a very practical 45 minutes. I've got a few slides, which kind of logistics slides, and then we're going straight into a demo. And so let's get started. Erica has said it all. We're really concentrating on using Power BI to shape data and a bit of visualization at the end. So let's get started. You can see my screen, and let's just have a quick look at a couple of chart screens first of all. So what we are going to do is we're going to take the English Premier League, that's football, 20 teams, they all play each other, 380 games during the last season. We've got a list of all the games. I'm going to show you that in a minute. That's our kind of raw operational data, excuse me. We are going to go and transform that to get a summary performance result, a ranked summary, which is what's called the league table results. I'm going to show you examples of both those in a minute, and we're going to use Power BI's query editor to do it. Power BI, the query editor, is a fantastic piece of software for shaping data. Things that you might have had to done before in SQL, or if you were a Python fan using pandas, or if you're using R with the tidyverse, the query editor can do that, and all in a really nice user interface. And we're going to see that. And this case study I like because we've got lots of standard transformations. I've got a list of them, some of them there, I won't read them out, but very standard transformations that we're going to do on it. So let's have a look. Now, one thing to listen to me, but the real learning comes when you do it yourself. I'm going to be moving reasonably fast through it, so maybe not, possibly later you might want to actually kind of go through the steps yourself. And to do that, I've got some resources, and let me start showing you what those are. Great. So the first thing that you need is, once you've clicked on that link that Erica has sent, there'll be a link to here. This is a GitHub repository. It's called Course Data Sets. There's a folder called Lab Leak Table Reactor SEP 2021 event, and that's got a few files in it. We're going to work from the bottom file upwards, so I'll start off with that file. So that file is this. It's a PDF, and it tells you exactly where the links for all the data sets are. The first data set, the EPL match record, there's a link there, and I'll just go through those in a minute. But as well as that, I am going to explain it, but there is a bit of kind of football knowledge. You've got to know how teams score points. I will explain that, but if you're doing it on your own later on, then there's just a kind of summary of what the results table looks like, and a bit of explanation of the column names of the data set that we're going to see. So that's there for you. Let's look at our raw data, and it's this. What we've got is a data set here. It's got 380 rows. Each row represents a game. And the first row is, let's have a look at it. It's a game played on the 12th of September last year. It was the first game in the series. It was played at 12:30. And Fulham, a kind of London team, played Arsenal, a North London team. And its home team is Fulham. That means they played at Fulham's ground at Craven Cottage in London. And the FTHG is full-time home goals. FDAG is full-time away goals. So full-time home goals are 0, so Fulham scored 0. Away goals is 3. Arsenal scored 3. Obviously, Arsenal won 3 goals to 0. And therefore, this FTR full-time result means A, it's an away win, a win for Arsenal, the away team. The rest of the columns are interested if you're a kind of football nut. Half-time results, referees, shots, fouls, corners, yellow and red cards, but we're not particularly interested in them today because it's these first 5 or 6 columns that are going to give it the information that we need to build the league table. So that's our starting data. Let's have a look at the sort of data we're going to get to. But before I do that, you might be interested. I've taken this data from this particular website. If you want to go and get more data, it's all available here. Really good website, not just last season, but previous seasons and also the current season. So very good data available there. Let's have a look at where we're going to get to. And it's here. This is nothing quite as beautiful as this, but this is a website from the Premier League itself. And what I'm doing is I'm showing the league results table. Now, to a few of you, this will be incredibly familiar stuff, and some of you will never have seen anything like this before. So at the expense of the football experts, let me explain. So as I said, there are 20 teams in the English Premier League, and this is a rank list of who came first, second, and so on. Manchester City came top of the league at the end. Everybody plays 38 games. That 38 stands for 38 games. Every team plays 19 of the teams, one's at home, one's away, so that's 38 games. Now, Manchester City won 21 games, drew 5 and lost 6. That's the 38. When it scored 83 goals in the season. That's a GF, the goals for, and it had 32 goals scored against it. It conceded 32 goals. And the difference, GD, the goal difference, is 51. That's the 83 minus the 32. It has 86 points, and though it gets points for 3 points for a win and 1 point for draw. So 327s are 81 and 5 makes 86. That's how it gets the 86 points. And you get to the top of the league by having the most points. And if you have the most points, then there's a tie in the points, as there are down here with Newcastle United and Wolverhampton Wanderers. Then we look at the goals for, and we can see Newcastle is above Wolverhampton. They've both got 45 points, but Newcastle had scored 46 goals, and Wolverhampton Wanderers only scored 36. So that's what we're going to do. That's our end result. And what we're going to do in Power BI is, here's a quick spoiler, but we're going to produce something, a Power BI equivalent of that. Not very fanciful, but here we've got a Power BI. I've got the league table here, and I've put a bit of conditional formatting, but that will do. And when I click on something, we can have a look. On the right hand side is showing the last 5 games, and there's also a little tooltip there that shows the last 5 games. So, but this is not about visualization today. This is all about shaping data. So let's get started with that. Great. Okay, so let me go to what I'm going to go to is I'm going to go to my course data set, and I'm going to come to here. This is the data. It's available, publicly available. I'm just going to click on this raw button down here, and that shows us the data exactly as it. This is actually a text file. GitHub has nicely formatted it for us here, but we want to have a look at the raw data. And that's the raw data. And what I can do is I can take this URL here, and that will be able to give me the data just as if it was a text file on my PC. So I'm going to copy that URL. Right. I'm going to come along, and I've got a Power BI, a large Power BI desktop. Good, you can see it there, that's great. And completely brand new, no data at the moment. So let's bring in that data. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on Get Data. Now, lots of ways that we can bring in data, and I'm sure that Dennis probably showed this last week. We can connect data to data sets, to web services, to Excel files, all sorts of things, about 100 different connectors. But today, what we're going to do is we are just going to use the web connector, because this file is on the web, and I'm going to click on web, say connect. It's going to ask me for a URL. I'm going to put in the URL of that CSV file, and I'm going to click on OK. Hopefully, because of my fingers, it will come up with a preview of the data. There we go. That's looking good. That's a preview of a data set. It's looked at it. It's worked out that it's a text file. It's showing me a preview, and that's great. I'm going to now click on Transform Data, and this brings up Power BI's query editor. Power BI I always think of as in 2 parts. One, Power BI proper, which is the report pane where we build our visuals, and the model pane where we connect all our tables together. And then there's a query editor, another window, which is where we connect to data and we shape our data sets and get them ready so that they're in good shape for analysis and visualization. So it's connected to that data set, and that's looking good. Good. Great. Okay, let's get started. The first thing that I'm going to do to this data set is I'm going to call this table something slightly different. I'm going to come over here, and I'm going to call this table, it's going to be my match table. I'll be pedantic and do capital M there. That's the name of my table. Great. And the next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to remove, maybe the best way to say it is I'm going to select just the columns that I need for this analysis. But before I do that, just as an aside, what I can do is I can say, actually, I always like, as soon as I've got some data in, I'm just going to do close and apply to leave the query editor and come back into the Power BI proper. It's going to bring in that match data for me. And I always like doing some visualization straight away. And so what I might want to do, now it's loading those 380 rows, and we can see that it's got all the data there. Let's have a look. We've got our match table in the field list and all our data. What I might want to do is the first thing I always do is I come along, and the first thing I always do is I always have a number of measure. I always want to count the number of matches or the number of points. So what I'm going to do is first of all, I'm going to close my email so we don't get any more email alerts. And I'm going to click on new measure. That's a dynamic calculation. And this measure, I'm going to make it a bit bigger so that we can see it. I'm going to call this my number of matches. And since every row in this table is a match, I can use a DAX function called count rows function. And it takes a table, I'll give it the match table, and that will just count the number of matches because every row is a match. I've created that measure. And what I might be interested to do is I might be interested to do something like this. I might look at my number of matches and maybe take a look at my date and look how they were spread over the year. That's 2020 and 21. Let's go drill into quarters and then into months. And we can see that kind of most of the matches in this season were played in December. Another interesting one I might do is I might come again, look at my number of matches, and this time I'm going to look at it by full-time result. And we get quite an interesting result here. Let me explain what happened here. A stands for an away win, H stands for a home win, and D stands for a draw. Now, there's a theory that says that teams have home advantage. I'll just put in some data labels so we can see those numbers. And in this season, we'd expect teams to win at home more often than they win away. And we'd expect the H, the home wins, to be more than that. And in fact, in most previous seasons, it certainly was the case that the number of home wins was greater than the away wins. What was different about this? Well, maybe the pandemic and the fact that for most of the season, teams were playing in empty stadiums without their supporters. So we can always do a visualization and explore the data, and it's always good to do that. But now I'm going to go back to transform data, and we're going to start on shaping our data to get that result out. Good. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to choose some columns. I'm going to click on choose columns, and I'm just going to choose the columns that I really need. And really, I only need the first 4 or 5 columns: date, time, the home and the away team, the number of goals scored at full time, and the full-time result, even though we could work it out from the number of goals. The rest I don't need, so I won't bring them in for now. So I've just selected those columns, and I've got my match table. Now, the thing that we've got to do here is that we've got to split this into 2 tables, one for the home team and one for the away team. Each match generates 2 sets of points, one for the home team and one for the away team. So if a team wins, it gets 3 points. If a team draws, it gets 1 point, and you don't get any points for a loss. And so each match could generate 1 point for each team if it was a draw, or 3 points for one team and 0 for the other. So what we've got to do is copy that table and twice, one for the home team and one for the away team. Let's do that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come to match, and I'm going to click on reference, and it gives me a new table here. And this table is just a kind of light copy. It starts where match finishes. Let me just call this table now home stats. And I'm going to do exactly the same. I'm going to come to match, and I'm going to click on reference again, and I'm going to call this away stats. Lovely. So what does reference mean? So for example, if I look at home stats, it just looks exactly like match. And if I were to do something to match, like let's say I was going to add just a column, just for the sake of it, I'm just going to add a column called dummy, and I'll make that have the value equal to 1 always. Then if we have a look at that, then basically we'll see that home stats also has dummy and away stats has dummy, because they kind of point to the end of match. Let me get rid of that dummy column, we don't need it. And the reason I'm doing that, I could come along and duplicate it, and that duplicates all the steps, but every time now it's going to go, when we refresh our data, it will load from the same data set twice, once for match and once for match 2. So doing this reference is a bit easy. I'm going to get rid of my match 2. Good. So now we've got reference, let's start chaining them. So from the home point of view, what we're going to do is that the home team is actually us. We could call it my team, but I'm going to call it the team. That's us. The away team, I'm going to say, is actually going to be the opposing team. And I'll make that a capital T because the query editor is case sensitive. The full-time home goals are the goals that we've scored. I'm going to call them GF. Actually, I'm going to call them 4. Goals 4. That's not. That's the goals 4, the goals scored by the home team. And the FT, AG are the goals against. Lovely. And then the result, so if we have an away win, well, for the home team, that represents a loss. So I'm going to come here and I'm going to replace the values, and I'm going to replace A with lose. I'm going to come along and I'm going to replace H with win, because H is a home team win, is a win for us. I'm going to replace home with win. And lastly, when it's a D, I'm just going to say, well, that's a draw. I'll make it a bit more obvious. I'll call it a draw. So now I've got, basically, I've got the view from the home team perspective. And in fact, actually, just to make a point, I don't really care about the time of day. So I'm going to go back into my match. I'm going to come back into my removed other columns. I'm going to remove my time. We don't need to care if it was an afternoon or evening. That doesn't matter to us. We'll use a date later on because we want to know the last 5 matches, but we don't care about time. I'm going to just say OK. Notice that the time column has disappeared, but it's also disappeared from our home stats and also disappeared from our away stats. Let's do the same with our away stats, but this time the home team, from the away team point of view, the home team is the opposing team, and the away team, well, that's the team. The full-time home goals is the goals against, and the full-time away goals by the away team is goals scored by the away team, so they're 4. And the logic for full-time results is reversed. And if I make a mistake, do shout out in the chat window. I'm quite likely to. So an away, from the away team's point of view, an away win is a win. So I'm going to replace the A with win. I'm going to replace a home win from the away side is a loss. I'm going to replace H with lose. And lastly, a draw is always a draw. So let's just replace that just to make it lovely. So what we've got is now we've got 2 tables here, one home stats and one away stats. Each of them have got 380 rows. We can see that down there. And each representing either the home team or the away team's view of the matches. And each of them has got exactly the same number of columns and exactly the same names of the columns. And that's useful now, because what we are going to do now is going to stack those on top of on top of each other to create a combined table. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come along to Append Queries, and I'm going to append queries as new. This makes it more obvious if I create a new table. And what I'm going to do is, it doesn't matter which way I append it, away stats first and home stats next, but I'm just going to append these 2 tables and say OK. And it gets me a table and called append 1. I'm just going to call that table our team stats. Lovely, great. So our team stats, you can see down here bottom left, it's got 760 rows, 380 from home, 380 from away. It's got that. what I'm doing is I'm just going to check using the green bars. If you don't see the green bars, the funny distribution, then what you need to do is just tick on column distribution, column profile, and column quality. Those green bars just help me quickly check that the data looks right. I've got my 20 teams there, I've got my 20 teams there, and if I look at my FTRs, I've got win, draw, and lose. That looks good. So I think I've done everything right. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to come along to my home stats and my away stats. They are at the moment are intermediate tables because I've got all the data in team stats. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to come along and unclick enable load for home stats, do exactly the same for away stats. And that means that when I load this data into PowerBI proper, it won't bring them in. We need them there because they build team stats, but it won't bring them in. Let me make that point. So I'm going to do home, close and apply, give it a second to come up. It's going to load that. It's closed the query editor. It's loading that data in and it's coming in. And notice what we've got. Let me quickly go to the model view. We've got our match and our team stats, but we haven't got our home and away stats. They're just intermediate tables. I didn't want to bring them in. Lovely. That's great. Let me go back, transform data, and go back into the query editor. Good. Great. So now we've got our team stats. We've got all the kind of granular data that we need to build the league table. But the league table isn't 760 rows, it's 20 rows, one for each team. So what we're going to do is, first of all, we're going to calculate the columns that we need, the won, drawn, lost points, and then we're going to aggregate by team. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to reference to create another table. And this table, I'm going to call it my league table. That's what I'm going to call it. Capital T there. Lovely. And what we're going to do, first of all, is we're going to kind of start creating a few things. Let's start at working out the number of ones. So I'm going to create a column called 1, which is 1 for a win and 0 for a draw and loss. And then when I aggregate and sum them up, that will be the number of wins. I'll do the same for draw and loss. So let's just do that. And we can do it in a couple of ways. But I need to add a column. So I'm going to click on Add Column in the menu bar. And I'll start off doing it the hard way. I'll start off by saying I'm going to get it created by creating a custom column. And that brings up this dialog box. And I'm going to call this dialog box 1. And that's the name of the column. And what I'm going to say is that the 1, I'm going to say if, I'm just going to use it, and I'm going to say if my FTR, full-time result, equals win, then once, else 0. Now, fortunately, it's saying no syntax error has been detected. I've written this tiny bit of code. We'll do it in a simpler way in a minute, but I'm going to click on OK. And what happens, it gives me this column called 1. And with 1 for this row, because Fulham, the team is Arsenal, they played Fulham and they did win, so it's got a 1. When Southampton played Crystal Palace, they lost, so they don't get a 0 there. And it gives me this ABC 1, 2, 3 here. Let me just show you that. Oh yeah, it's really ought to know that that's an integer. ABC 1, 2, 3 means I'm not quite sure the data type. It's an data type. I'm just going to be pedantic and say actually that is a whole number, either 1 or 0. So I've done the same first for 1. Let's now do it for draw. I'm going to add a column. This time I'll do it in a slightly different way. I'll do a conditional column. And what I'm going to do now, I'm going to have this for drawn. And what I'm going to say here is a little dialogue. I can say, if the FTR, I can choose, I'm doing a very simple one, but you can see that the logic can be much more complex, equals lose, then 1, else 0. And that's what I can say. There we go. And we can see here, let's have a quick check. Southampton played Crystal Palace and they lost, and there's the 1. So that's we've done our drawn. Again, I'll do the same there. Let me just do the lost in the same way. I'm going to do a conditional column, and now you get the picture. I'm going to call it lost, and I'm going to say if the FDR equals lose, then 1, else 0. Hopefully I've got my logic right. And again the same. So what I'm doing now is I'm creating all the columns that we'll need in our league table. Because the next thing that we want to do is we want to do the points. And so let's do that calculation. Again, I'm going to do a custom column. And what I'm going to say, I'm going to call this points. And I'm going to say there are 3 points, 3 multiplied by 1. Now I can use the 1, the column we just created. And I can say plus drawn. And I'm going to add that together, points. We'll have a look at that and we'll just check that that looks right. I'm going to come along, make that whole number. So let's have a look at that. Let me just move that out of the way so we can see what we've got. Let's take an example. Here we have Newcastle playing West Ham. They won and they've got 3 points. Let's have a look at this one below. Arsenal played West Ham. That looks wrong. But they both drew and they lost. So I've got some small calculation something going wrong here. My lost looks to be wrong to me. So let's just go into my lost again. We can see that I've said it. You can't both draw and lose, and it's 2-1. So it's good to take the check. Let's have a quick look at that. Is that our lost? That's our lost. Equals lose them 1, else 0. That looks good to me. Okay. That looks good. If I've got a error somewhere, which I have, then you can shout it out. So let's have a look at this. Burnley played Leicester. It was 2-4, so Burnley lost. So that's right. So maybe it's a problem with my drawn. So let me have a look at that. There's my drawn. So that was my error. What we can do as well, when we're writing this, I can come along to these and I can rename. So I might want to rename that and said added drawn. And that means, and keep on going like that. I won't rename them all, but we can also, that starts adding a bit of documentation to it. And we can even as well, we can put in properties and I can say check the logic here. So that's not a very good comment, but basically it means that now I can look at that and there's a comment there. So we can, what I'm doing, even though I'm doing it manually and creating all these steps, it's producing an automated script for me. Every time Power BI desktop refreshes, it will, when the league table updates, it will go through all these steps again. When I publish it to the Power BI service and it's on a scheduled refresh, so every hour it goes out and gets the latest results, it will go through these steps. So good to document what we're doing. Great. And let's have a look. Hopefully I haven't broken anything there. And hopefully I haven't got any errors, but it doesn't really matter if I have. Good. So what we've got is we've got our won, drawn and lost. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to come back to that league table. And I'm saying, so now I've got 760 rows. And now what I want to do is I want to group that data. So let's come along. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to click on transform and I'm going to group by. And I'm going to group by team because what we want is a result for the team. And the first thing I'm going to click on advanced because we're going to need quite a few aggregations. So I'm grouping by team. And the first aggregation I'm going to call played. It's the number of games that they've played. And we can simply count the rows because each row is a game played by a team. So that's good. But now what we're going to do is we're going to add a few aggregations. And this, first of all, is 1. all we're going to do is we're going to sum up the one column. And you know where this is going. The next one is drawn, and we're going to sum the drawn column. I'll just do lost, and we are going to sum up the lost column where somebody can see. We're also going to sum up our points, and again, let's do that. It's a bit dull. Where's my points? My points is under, so I've got to move that. It was under my stop sharing the StreamYard points. We also want to know the for and against, so let's just do that. We've got the for. Remember, that's goals scored by our team. We're going to sum those up, the for, and we're also going to add a final one against, and we're going to sum that up. And there we go. I'm sure I've forgotten something, but that will do for the moment. I'm going to click on OK. And what happens now is instead of 760 rows, we're getting 20 rows, one for each team. Lovely. So that's great. That is looking a bit like our league table that I showed at the beginning. It's got all the columns that we want, apart from goal difference, but so far they are not in position. So Arsenal didn't come first. I don't know what order they're in, but so we've got to order it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come along. Actually, what I'm going to do is going to change that points into a whole number. Doesn't really matter if I'm being pedantic. And I'm going to say that I want to order first by sorting points descending. And so Man City is the top. And then I say, actually, what we want to do is we want to order it secondly by points. So let me just zoom in there and show you what's happened there. You can see that, there we go. We can see that points has got a 1 next to it and 4 has got a 2 next to it. That's it. So it's ordering by points, high to low. And then if there is already ties, then it'll order by 4, the goals 4. That's good. So now I've got them in the order that I want them. Newcastle before Wolves in 12 and 13. What I'm going to do is I'm going to add another column, and this is an index column. I'll start from 1 because our first team is ranked number 1. And then we've got this index column, which I'm basically going to call the position. I'm going to just rename that and call that the position. Lovely. So that is our data. Good. And now we've finished. What we can do now is we can come in and we can look at that. I'm going to finish in the query editor. I'm going to do close and apply. And I'm going to bring this data in. I'm going to do a tiny bit of modeling. We're just going to connect up the league table and the team stats so that we can do them. Give it time to come in. Hopefully it won't take too long. It's just loading all that data. And it's a bit slow. I always have a worked example in the background just in case something goes wrong. Lovely. Good, actually. So what we want to do is it has actually already, I'm going to just put match out of the way for the moment. Just going to hide match for the moment by clicking that tab, hitting it. And we've got our league table and it's put a relationship between team and team. I'm just going to hide team in the team stats because we've already got it in the league table. Good. So let's come along and let's build our league table. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to create a table visual. And in that table visual, I'm going to put it on the left-hand side, and I'm going to come along to my league table, and I'm just going to add the order that we get them in. So first of all, we'll start off with the position, then the team name. One thing I want to do actually before I do any of that is I want to come along and I want to add, I have to do a tiny bit more modeling, which I also get. I'm going to come along to all of these and select them all apart from the team and say, apart from the team, and try that again, that one to that one, apart from the team. And what I'm going to say is that I'm going to, when I want to aggregate them up, I want the sum up in the table. These are all numbers and I want them all summed up. So let's do that. And then when we go back to our field list, we can see it's got a sigma against it. That's quite useful because then when we put them in, it knows to sum them up. So actually one thing that we didn't want summing up was position, but never mind. Let me just bring position on. And in fact, so it's summed it up. Actually, what I wanted with position is something different. If I will reach myself there, I want it, don't summarize, but then I want the team in there. And then I want the one drawn, lost, for, and against. I want to put a played in after the team, and the points go at the end. So we have our league table, and hopefully it's very much like the league table I showed you. At least the results are still not very beautiful. A couple of things that we'll do is that we'll come along and I'll switch off the totals. Those totals don't mean anything. I will come into the style and say, actually, I want it to be a minimal style, because then what I'm going to do with a lot of this, for example, just with the points, I would come along and do lots of conditional formatting to make it easy for that to read. I would come along and I'm going to come along and say, into my conditional formatting, I will format my points column. For example, I will use some data bars, and I might just click on some advanced controls because that's a bit dark. I like to have a lighter color so I can read the numbers underneath it. So when that comes up, I will click on a lighter color. So just one example of conditional formatting. Maybe you want to make that a bit bigger. In the example that I've given you, there's lots more conditional formatting. Let me just do one other thing, and that is to bring in the team stats table as another table. So I'll click on the table. I'll bring in my team stats on the right hand side, and I'll put my team on. I don't need, let me just put the team on there for the moment. And I'm going to put the date. And I want the date, actually, I just want the date, not as a hierarchy, just as a date. And I'll put the for, the against, and the result, and I'll put the opposing team there. And what we can do, if we have a look at the team, let's have a look at Chelsea here. What that's going to do, it's going to filter. Here we can see it's all Chelsea here. We can have a look at all Chelsea's matches if we wanted to. So we've got some interactions between the two tables. We obviously don't need Chelsea in this second here because that is. So obviously we might want to make this a bit better. If we can take Format Painter to apply that. And we can apply lots of nice conditional formatting. We can order that. There we go. And we can see Chelsea's matches. Now, what I've also given you in those resources is a kind of worked example that you can see where I've done a bit more conditional formatting. I've also added a couple of tooltips and some filtering as well. You can have a look at that. But the purpose of today in this 45 minutes has all been about shaping the data. So I hope what I've done is prove to you that Power BI is really good at shaping data. It's really flexible, it's easy to use, and it's really powerful. So thank you for that. I'll open to Q&A in a minute. I will just want to say that a couple of things about me, first of all. I run a group, a meeting group for the last 6 years, and it's called London Business Analytics Group. We've had about 100 events. Obviously, we are virtual for the last year, but we used to meet up in central London, and we'll be meeting up again quite soon. And we'll also be recording and streaming our events. lots of talks about anything and everything to do with data science. We've got a great one coming up in a month's time, all about quite a technical one about Power BI and security. Since we have been virtual, we've also created a YouTube channel, and we've got lots of our videos are on there, mainly about Power BI, but also, and quite a lot about data modeling from my friend Chris, but also about machine learning and all sorts of subjects as well as that. So I hope you see some of you at a future London Business Analytics Group event. And finally, just to say as well that if you're interested in another talk by me, I'm giving a talk in a week's time about Power BI, but completely different, all about classical stuff to do with project data, timescales, milestone, resources. How do we analyze and visualize project data, classical project data in Power BI? So with that, I'll say thank you. That's the formal part over. I hope you've enjoyed it. All the resources are available for you at the link that Erica gave. Feel free to contact me if you have any questions, but I'll open up now for Q&A.
Hi, Mark. Thank
Hi,
you so
Erica.
much for today.
Pleasure.
Thank you. You were right on 45 minutes.
More luck than judgment.
Yeah, it was great. Like, yeah, right on 45. You said it's gonna go 45. It went 45.
Okay.
So yes, thanks once again. And yeah, guys, if you have any questions to Mark, it's time to ask them now or never, you might say.
Well, thank you, Flyman.
Yeah, Flyman says that was amazing. Yeah, good to hear that.
Good. As I say, really good to do it yourself, and all the resources that are there. I like this example. It's easy to understand. Though I think these days, after Emma Raducanu's win, we should be kind of doing a tennis data set rather than a football data set. So at least if you're in Britain, big excitement about the US Open result. Any questions?
Right.
Good.
Yeah. All clear from
Lovely.
Flyman's end. Seems to be so. Well, then I will take just like 30 seconds just to talk about the series and some upcoming sessions. Please be, yeah, as you know, this is an event series, so please register for the upcoming sessions. The next one is going to be on Wednesday. So it's going to be every Wednesday at 5 p.m. CET. Europe, Stockholm time, my time. But the next one is going to be create reports and dashboards. And then in 2 weeks' time, we have data flows. This is for the beginner content. And then we are into October, where we are going to start with a bit of intermediate content. And then we're going to learn more about conditional formatting, aggregations, Power BI time intelligence, and Power BI paginated reports. I will drop the link to the series page in the chat, so you can just check out the upcoming sessions and register yourself. Let's see if we have more questions. Sorry, I missed the first session. Is Power BI mainly for data visualization? No, or I don't know. Is it? Please help me out here.
Yeah, so Power BI is good for aggregating your data, connecting to all sorts of data sets, cleaning it up as I've shown you, and then for visualizing your data. Yes, but you can do a lot of that analysis as well. We've touched on the query editor, but in the intermediate sessions that Eric has been referring to, there's a very powerful language part of Power BI called DAX, which allows us to do all the things, the time intelligence functions that you talked about, the years data and things like that, and ratios, and much more powerful stuff as well. So it's visualization is very good as well when you want to distribute and present your reports. it makes it very interactive. You can publish it to the Power BI service, one of Microsoft service, on your tenant, so that it's secure for them. The people that you want to see can see it, and they can interact with your visualizations in many ways.
Thank you. Was that clear? I guess.
Hope so, Patricia. Hope so.
Yeah. Any more questions? If not, then we will end this broadcast and let Mark to have his dinner.
Love it, and thank you everybody else for the dinner. Thank you for coming, and thank you for spending the hour with us.
Yeah.
I hope you all have a lovely evening.
Yes, I wish the same to everybody, and I hope to see you here next Wednesday, exactly in a week, to have a very, very powerful autumn. Thank you. Thank you once again, and I see you soon. Have a lovely rest of the day or evening, whatever you are.
Okay, thanks. Bye.
Bye.